Yes. What is happening in India up till very recently is that we have conventional prisons. So, conventional prisons are your standard prisons where you catch a culprit, you put them behind bars, and they serve out their sentence. And then, after a particular number of years, they are released. So, that is the conventional prison setting. But recently in India, we have started open prison system where criminals who have been sentenced for 7 years or less, 7 years or less, they are handpicked. These prisoners are handpicked. A shortlist is made, and they are shifted to the open prison system where they would be given an opportunity to intermingle into the community at large.
Everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have someone joining me from outside of Canada, where I am, which is exciting. Monica Singh is here on the podcast. We're talking about her book, newly released book, and she's holding it and is so excited and happy. And she's also a great editor as well. So if you're looking for an editor, we're going to kind of talk about that at the beginning here. But Monica's looking to work with you. If you're looking for a great editor, Monica's here. She'd love to talk to you. Monica, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. So glad to have you here.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. I am really, really excited about this conversation, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you about my book and, all about writing.
Amazing. So tell everybody, I like to start here with everybody, Monica. Tell everybody where you are in this great big world of ours.
I am in Hyderabad, India. And yeah, it's almost 9:30 p.m. right now. So
Well, so for me, for everyone listening at home, it's like noon, lunchtime for me here in Canada. So the power of the internet that you and I can have a conversation, Monica. This is so cool. I love this.
this is amazing. It is amazing. Yes.
It's amazing. Okay, so talk a little bit about your journey as an editor. We want to start off with this at the beginning. You help authors as an editor. If I was trying to find an editor like you, like an amazing editor like you, what are some of the things I should look for when talking to a new editor? What kind of questions as an author should I ask you if I'm thinking about hiring you? Here we go. How's that? Let's start with that.
Yeah, that's actually really, really important, and something that I talk to about, with my clients all the time, that authors should know what they want out of an editor before they hire an editor. So you should not just, go, of course, it's a very good thing to go by recommendations and references. But whenever you are approaching an editor as an author, you have to know what you want. For example, I do a lot of there are different types of editing. There's developmental editing, there's line editing, there's proofreading. So based on the stage that your manuscript is in right now and the kind of help that you need from your editor, it's always good to have a set of questions for your editor. So this is what I'm looking for. Are you going to do this? And I'm looking for a developmental edit, but I'm not looking for a line edit. So how much is that going to cost me? And what are you going to do with the developmental edit? What are the kind of inputs you're going to give me? This is the genre of my manuscript. And, do you have experience with it? It's very important for an author to know that the editor has experience in that particular genre because, the editor should be familiar with all those tropes that the genre normally employs.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of questions, and you should always ask for a sample edit. Is something that I provide to my clients free of charge because they should know what I am bringing to the table, and they should see value in my work before they hire me for a longer project. So I always give a free sample edit for the first chapter or 2, 3 pages or 5 pages of their manuscript, so they know what I'm bringing to the table. It's always very important to know because the editor will sign you on, and then, they will not be strict about their timeline. They will not communicate with you because it's a joint venture. Bringing out a book is a joint venture. There has to be constant communication between the author and the editor. It cannot be like, you give the manuscript and the editor is gone, and 1 month down the line, they'll come back and they'll say, oh, here is your manuscript. I've edited it. Now pay me. That's not how it happens. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about some of the authors that you love to work with. If you get that email that comes in and you're like, oh, that's an author, that's a type of book or a genre that I really would love to edit and work with this person. Who do you love to work with?
So right now I actually look for the genre that I'm really interested in to work with is fantasy and science fiction and horror are something that I really, really love to work in because the kind of creativity and the world building that that genre has is something that really excites me. So that is something that I really like to work in. And I also do nonfiction. One of the projects that I did for nonfiction, I was really hesitant about, but the author was so forthright about what he wanted out of the manuscript and what his purpose was in that manuscript. It was a very politically charged manuscript, in context with Kashmir and all the riots that were happening in Kashmir. So it was very politically charged, and I was really hesitant to take it on. But the author was very clear about what he wanted, and he was very clear on his purpose. So that was a really exciting relationship that we had while working on the manuscript because it was my first nonfiction, and I had so much fun with it. Really had so much fun with it. So I think the best kind of authors are, somebody that who understands what the purpose of their story is, somebody that I really like to work with. Somebody that I don't like to work with is, here is my manuscript, make it better.
Hmm.
That's not something that I do. I can make it better, but the manuscript has to have that, that depth and that those characters that I can make them relatable to the reader. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Do you like to spend time talking to the author, like outside of the book,
absolutely.
just to get to know their voice and how they show up in the world? Each author's different, right? You can't just edit the same for everybody. So, like, talk a little bit about if I was to hire you, kind of what would it be like as far as us starting to work together? What kind of connections do we have? Do we have time together to talk? Talk a little bit about what it's like to bring a new author on as an editor.
So what I do initially is like first is the query, or like they ask me for stuff and I provide them the information. I conduct a call like how we are talking right now because I really like to know what the author is wanting out of the manuscript. Like what is their story really about and what is it that they want to convey through the manuscript because the manuscript is going to be in a very rough form. It's not there yet. So I
Yeah.
want to understand from the author what they want at the end product. What is it that they're looking for? So I conduct a call like this and we talk about the project and we talk about what they want, when they want it, how much time, or are there any deadlines they're working with? Because most authors are working with their publishers and there are deadlines to meet and I have to meet those deadlines. So we conduct a call. I get to know the author. I get to know what they're looking for and what they want me to do with their work. So we have that call, they tell me everything, and then afterwards, I give them a tentative timeline of when I can get back to them with the first edit. I do 2 rounds of editing. So I'll tell them about my timelines, about my charges and everything. And then afterwards, if I tell them that, I'm going to pester you and you have to be okay with it.
Mhm.
I'm going to pester you if I have any doubts about your manuscript. I'm not just simply going to cut out a big chunk out of your story and say that, just because I'm the editor, I'm allowed to do that. No. If I have a doubt, I'm going to pester you. And I really hope that, you will reciprocate with my questions if I have a query, if I have any doubts about the characters, all of that. And I make one thing very clear to my audience is that, don't think of me as somebody who is butchering your manuscript. That's
Mm.
number one, because authors are really scared of editors. So I'm not going to butcher your manuscript. I'm here to work with you to make it better, to have it say what you want it to say. So yeah, that's something that and one thing that really helps is that when authors are receptive to the feedback that I give them, that's really important because I have worked with authors who are not really that receptive of criticism or comments on their work, and that relationship just doesn't work out because I want the work to be better, but they think that they already know everything, so that kind of relationship does not work better. So they have to be receptive to the feedback that I'm giving. Of course, at the end, it is the author's decision. whether to accept that feedback or not. But they have to understand my rationale behind a particular feedback. So yeah, we have that conversation and we do, weekly check-ins or monthly check-ins as per the author's convenience. That's how we go ahead with the work here.
Yeah. And you are looking to work with authors internationally. So around the world,
Yes.
you're available to
Yeah.
anyone, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's
I
good to
have
know.
worked with a lot of Indian authors, and it has been a really really wild ride. But there's a what do I call it? There's a consistency in the kind of stories that I get. So I'm not getting any new material to work with. So I hope that when I broaden my horizons, I'll get something new to work with that excites me.
Okay,
But
so
yet,
you're listening to this and you're a new author looking for an editor. You have no idea where to go. Monica's information will be in the show notes. Reach out to her. And again, get that sample edit, get some feedback from an expert who has helped a lot of authors in the past. And I know she'd love to work with you. It would be great for you to reach out to her. So we want to bring as many people to Monica as possible. Okay. Monica, we're going to fill up your
yes,
email box. Okay.
yes, absolutely. I look forward to it. Yeah.
Excellent. So we'll have all that information for Monica in the show notes. Now, on top of being an amazing editor and helping other authors, you are the now proud owner of your book is out, and you showed it to me. It's exciting. Tell me what it feels like to hold your book in your hands for the first time. What did it feel like when it arrived at your home?
Surreal, I should say. I don't know. It was a very strange feeling because this is a manuscript that you've been working on over and over again, and it's always been on your computer. Even during the editing stages, it has always been on your computer. So holding the book, the physical form in your hand,
Mhm.
it's I don't think that authors can really describe that feeling. It's surreal. It made me cry. It made me so happy to see this product because so much of effort and so much of energy goes into making this story. Um, so yeah, it was out of the world. I don't know how else to describe the feeling.
Was there any point in the writing of your book, maybe the early days, where you thought, this might not happen? Like, I might not be an author, I might not publish my book. And if there was, how did you work through that?
Yes, there were a lot of such points in this book, especially because we are dealing with a very sensitive and morally ambiguous subject when we talk about giving second chances to convicted criminals. So there were many points where I was very doubtful, extremely doubtful that this message would be received by the public. And there were so many beta readers who read my book, and they were like, the story is good, but we don't know whether there is a market for it. We don't know whether people want to read this kind of a book because it does not appeal to the masses as much. Nobody wants to think about convicted criminals. I don't want to think about convicted criminals. So yeah, there were a lot of doubts, and then things were happening in India. A lot of horrific crimes happened in Kolkata recently, um, and everything was very very charged. The situation was really charged in Kolkata. A girl was raped and she was brutally murdered. And at that point of time, the book was already in the editing stages with the publisher, and I felt so defeated with the whole concept that I thought, I don't think it is worth it. I don't think that, this is something that I would want to get behind after, this has happened.
Hmm.
And it took me a lot of time to gather the energy or the conviction to get back into the story and make it happen into a book because I gave it a lot of thought, and it came to me that, things like this, things like what happened in Kolkata were uh, things that really required me to talk about this subject
Yeah.
because this is what I am aiming at. I'm trying to change the system, and until and unless we change the system, nothing is going to happen. So I think that was the point. That was the worst. Like I was at rock bottom. I was like, no, this is not going to happen. I don't feel convinced enough about this book. How am I going to convince anybody else about this story? So yeah, it was an uphill battle for me, but yes, I pulled myself out of it, and I know that this is a subject that needs to be talked about, especially because of the horror we see every day in our society.
Yeah. So for pronounced guilty, it's all around kind of what happens, I guess, when we had our conversation, we talked about this a little bit, but what happens for people who are convicted, who are sent to prison, and there's a different option being offered now in India as far as what corrections look like and kind of like more of an open setting in the prison system, and it's kind of being tested. Can you talk a little bit about the what is happening and what is going on there that kind of sparked kind of the idea behind the book?
Yes. What is happening in India up till very recently is that we have conventional prisons. So, conventional prisons are your standard prisons where you catch a culprit, you put them behind bars, and they serve out their sentence. And then, after a particular number of years, they are released. So, that is the conventional prison setting. But recently in India, we have started open prison system where criminals who have been sentenced for 7 years or less,
Okay.
7 years or less, they are handpicked. These prisoners are handpicked. A shortlist is made, and they are shifted to the open prison system where they would be given an opportunity to intermingle into the community at large before their sentence gets over. Before
Mm.
their sentence gets over, they would be shifted to this facility and they would be allowed to work. They would be allowed to learn new courses, get them familiarized with the society so that when their sentence is finally over and they are released into the society, they have something that they can work with. They can get jobs, they can get rent out an apartment, they can earn some money to support themselves financially. That's something that has happened very recently in India. But up till now, the conventional prison system in India is focused on containment of the prisoners and not really rehabilitation or
Yeah.
reformation of these criminals.
Mm.
So one of the things that just kind of put that you know niggle of doubt or speed inside my head was during COVID, India was looking at a really bad scare because of our population. So in March of 2020, the Supreme Court of India told the central government that you need to decongest the prison population because the prisons were like extreme COVID clusters.
Yeah.
They were at maximum occupancy. Some were at over occupancy,
Yeah.
almost 150% over occupancy. So Supreme Court of India told the government to decongest the prison population, and this is when almost 30,000 to 40,000 prisoners who had not been convicted or who had been convicted were released on parole or on bail. They were
Mhm.
released, and of course, due process was followed for their approval of bail or parole. But this is something that just made me think, these these prisoners, they were arrested for crimes that they had committed, but now they are back in the society.
Mhm.
How are we ensuring that these people are not going to commit the same kind of crimes that they committed before? They
Right.
have not served out their sentences. Some of them have not even been charged. So what is it that we are doing? If these people are released now, there are other people in the prison, and they are also going to be released at some point of time. And we are going to be walking side by side, and we won't know whether
Right.
this is a person who has been behind bars, which is true. We won't know of any stranger. So that was something that made me think about sustainable change in the criminal justice system, so that at least for the people who are sentenced for very violent crimes, at least for those people, we have a system in place to make them um, productive members of the society when they come out. We don't want them to repeat their crimes. because that's going to happen. Containment is not the solution. You have
Right.
to give them opportunities to reform, and you have to give them opportunities to rehabilitate themselves.
Yeah.
So that's how the books kind of, started.
How much research did you have to do to write this book? Like, you have a lot of information just in the preparation to write this book. Like, how long have you been researching this?
So the idea came to me, like I said, March 2020, and
Yeah.
I let it digest, or I researched about it for nearly 2 years,
Wow.
and I started writing my book in 2023.
Okay.
Was when I started writing the book. Before that, I did a lot of research in terms of reading books on Indian prisons, reading nonfiction that talked about the state of the prisoners inside Indian prisons. So I did a lot of that during those 2 years. And when I started, so my process is a little different because normally the authors that I meet, they do all their research beforehand and then they start writing. What I do is I do a minimal amount of research and then I start writing my book. And while I'm writing, I do my research
Hmm.
to understand what is it that I need in this book. So that's what I did. I started writing my book, and meanwhile, I was also doing research. Like I was reading up on news articles. I read a lot of court transcripts of landmark cases where this open prison system came into being, how it came into being, and what is the status of the open prison system right now. I read a lot of prison manuals and statistics, prison statistics reports given by the government, which is an annual thing. So I read up on those reports going back like 5 years. And yeah, there was a lot of research involved. And I think one of the most difficult aspect of the research was to get the legalese right. I wanted to get the legalese right because I was talking about a very, very sensitive subject. So I had to get the laws, the sections, and
Yeah.
the guidelines given by the government absolutely right because I couldn't get them wrong in the book.
Right.
So it was a long process of research here.
And you're happy with the result, though, right? Through all the
Absolutely
process, right?
thrilled.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, thrilled.
What kind of feedback have you had from your beta readers and from others that have looked at the book and read the book? What kind of feedback have you received that made you excited and happy? Like what kind of things have you heard?
So I've heard both all across the spectrum. Some of my beta readers really loved the premise and how the book talks about this difficult subject, along with talking about redemption in the general sense of the word, not only for convicted criminals, but for ourselves. So my characters are going through a lot of difficult things in their lives and they are looking for redemption as well, along with the convicted criminals. So most of my beta readers really loved the idea and how I executed it. And one of the best things that I heard from them was, they had never thought about prisoners as people. And my book made them think of them as people, as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the purpose of my book. That's what I set out to do because I was one of those people that I had never thought of prisoners as people. I'd always thought of them as criminals and nothing more. And when they reciprocated that message to me after reading the book, I was like, yes, I've done a good job then. This is what I want the readers to take away that they are people too. They are human beings. No matter what crimes they have committed, they are human beings.
Yeah.
That was one spectrum. Another spectrum of readers was very hesitant about their feedbacks because obviously it's a very morally gray area. And they would ask me questions, what kind of research did you did? Who did you talk to? And why are you writing about this subject? And things like, they can never give second chances like I am talking about in the book. It's not possible for them. So it was, in a way, I consider it a victory of my book because it made them think about their own biases,
Right.
which is what the book made me do. The book made me think about my own biases. And in a way, even if, they do not agree with the message of the, they will think about it, they will talk about it, and they will debate about it, which is what I'm, yeah.
Okay. Because I picture, Monica, someone serving maybe a lesser sentence. You said less than 7 years, for example. They serve their time, they come out of prison, and they're standing outside of the prison, and now they have to start life over again. They haven't been given any tools to live life differently. All they know is what they did before they went to prison, and sometimes they end up going back to what they used to do and back in prison again. And they just do this circle. They
Again and
release prison
again.
again and again,
Yes.
right? So they're never improving, they're never getting better, they're never learning how to live in public in a new way. And I like the idea that you're challenging that through your book, is that these are human beings. I think from a victim side, I think a lot of victims, they think, well, I'm just going to, this person did something wrong, I want to put them away and I don't want to think about them. Right. But at the same time, we need to think about how we can help that person get better or find the tools, right, so that they can live a better life. And I just think that that's part of our bias that you talk about, that we need to think about that and address that. So, from the victim's perspective, if a victim of a crime was to read your book, what is your hope for a victim and a family impacted by crime? How should we think about these people that are in prison in a new way that makes them more successful when they're released? What would you say to a victim's family based on your book?
Like you said, David, so this is a very, very real thing that happens to the prisoners when they come out. Our
Yeah.
world is changing so fast that even 2 years away from society is going to have a huge impact. Imagine spending 7 years cut off from the society, or maybe 14 years cut
Hmm.
off from the society. When they come out, they don't have any family because their family has already moved on. They have gone away somewhere, and they don't have any kind of resources. They don't have any kind of financial or any other kind of support. Plus, they have this label of being a criminal. So
Right.
they don't get jobs. They will never get jobs easily. They will not get education because they are a criminal. So it's a very real cycle that happens because that's the only thing they know. They know that this is how they can get money. So they will commit the crime
Yeah.
again and they will get arrested again. So, yes, it is a cycle. But from a victim's point of view, I agree with you. It is very difficult to look at a person who has harmed us, in a benevolent or even in a forgiving kind of light.
Right.
For the victims, I would say that, giving a chance at reformation of that person does not mean that you have to forgive them for what they did.
Hmm.
It does not mean that you have to forgive them. It does not include forgiveness. Redemption here is having that person take accountability for their own reformation.
Yeah.
How much longer are we going to perpetuate this cycle of crime and punishment and crime and punishment and not do anything about it? Today it could be me. Tomorrow it could be you. It could be anybody. So from the victim's point of view, you don't have to forgive them. If they have been caught, if they have been punished, I hope that you got justice. Of course, nothing can come up, nothing can, I don't know what to say, it can come even close to repairing what you have lost as a
Yeah.
result of the crime. Nothing can come close to it. But yes, you have to move on with your life. You
Right.
cannot be stuck in that phase of your life. And I think the best way forward is to just let them do whatever they want. You move on with their life. And it also depends a lot upon the prisoner or the criminal. Do they want to reform? Because these kind of opportunities are not given to every single person.
Hmm.
They're not given to every single person, which is where accountability comes in, which
Yeah.
is where they will say, "Ki, okay, I want to change my life. I'm going to be a better person than I was yesterday. So I want this opportunity and I'm going to work towards it. It's a long process. It's not like everybody will go to an open prison and everybody will get that chance. No. So that's why we need to make them accountable, to make them accountable to understand what they have done and to understand how difficult it is going to be for their victims to recover their lives. So until and unless we give them that, benefit of resources and chances, we are always going to be in that cycle.
Yeah.
And one victim is going to multiply into 10 victims. 10 victims are going to multiply into 100 victims, and nothing is going to change.
Mm. Right. When you think of an ideal reader for your book, I'm thinking of someone who works in the prison system, right? I'm thinking of someone who's a lawyer, a judge, the legal system. I'm thinking that would be an amazing audience for your book, to read your book from their perspective, because you're shining a light on all of the things that happen after the court case is done and the sentencing is done and the person is sent to prison. You're picking up from that point as well in your story, which is amazing. For those that are reading this book, and maybe they are in that higher level of the law and punishment and corrections, and they're in that level, and they read your book, what is your message to them as a leader, as somebody who's actually in the process of doing this? What would you say to them as they read your book?
To them, I would say that, people in authority have this really wonderful opportunity to make sustainable change in our society. And it is something that, we needed like 20, 30 years ago. This is something that we needed that many years ago. And, if even if we can do something about it right now, we can see changes. A decade down the line, we will see changes. But to those people who are in the system, I would really want them to, make use of these resources that we have and try and bring in that change, because it has to come from inside. It will not come from outside. It has to come from the people who are working in the system. And one of the major limitations of, everything that I have described in my book, one of the major limitations is resources, because the government is not allotting enough resources to the prison administration or to the legal administration to take care of all of these things. Like I said, in India, there are about 30 open prisons or 30 open prisons, and most of them are underutilized. Most of them have like a population of about 300 people, and they have a capacity of about 3,000. And only 300 people are selected and moved to that facility. So, if we
Hmm.
have that facility, if we give them that resource, they are going to do so much better. Open prisons are a fascinating, fascinating thing, but we are not using them to their full capacity. We're not
Hmm.
doing that. So, even if we can do that, that would be a huge step towards making our society safe for people. Because right now, we are not safe. And right now, that's what people from my country, India, are asking. We want safety. We don't want protection. Don't want protection. We want safety. We want justice. That's what I'm looking for. One other thing that I wanted to kind of stand out there is this label of criminality, it doesn't seem to stick that prominently to people of privilege, to people who have the financial or the educational resources to get away from the crimes that they committed. Like we have seen many examples of politicians, celebrities who've done crimes, very, very violent crimes, and they've gotten away with it. They don't seem to need the same kind of punishment as a person from a poor background or a person
Hmm.
from low resources. So that kind of bias is not justice. It has to be equal for everybody, whether they are privileged or not privileged.
Hmm.
If that is not happening, then we are nowhere close to even coming close to what my book is suggesting. We need to have no bias in justice. That's what justice is, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great point. I think that you can't have two separate rules, one for one group, one for another group. It doesn't work. And even, even if they do serve punishment and time, they have resources after they're released that other people wouldn't have. So they might be more successful after they're released than people who don't have the same resources, right? So that's unfair as well. So we got to keep that in mind. So Pronounced Guilty is available now for everyone in the world to get through all of the links, which we'll have as well on the in the show notes. But as far as connecting with you, Monica, around your editing services, so that we can reach out to you and hire you and work with you as an editor. And we have more questions about your book. We're somebody in the legal system that would love to talk to you. Maybe you could speak at a conference or something to talk about the legal system and talk about your book. I see a lot of opportunities for you to leverage this book and take this book and open doors to speak to audiences about this and make change. I really love where you're going with this, Monica. Like, I see you as developing this as a platform. This is like a stage, writing this book for you to stand on and now speak about it because you have this book, which means you could make a lot of change in your country just because of what you've written. So I'm really following you with great curiosity because I think there's something very special for you in the future. And I'm excited to see where this book takes you. So I'm really excited for that. But as far as you're connecting with you on your website and where we go as a listener to connect with you, where do you want to send everybody?
So I don't have a website as of now. I'm in the process of preparing it. So I will be available on my Instagram handle and my email ID if anybody wants to reach out to me. The best place is to do via Instagram or my email. So my Instagram is of words and blues. And my email ID is Monica Singh 14.07 at gmail.com.
Awesome. And we'll make sure we have that in the show notes. That's great. Let me know in the future when your website is ready. I'll make sure that we update the notes as well. So the last little question for you, Monica, as we are closing off here. Pronounced Guilty is out in the world. You're an excited author to have your book in the world. The name of my show is Living the Next Chapter. So it's all about what's next for us, right? As our life continues. It could be around authors, it could be around anything in life. So for you, the book is out, you're excited, you're promoting it. But I got to ask, what is the next thing for Monica? What is your next chapter?
My next chapter is writing a book on mental health. It
Hmm.
is something that I am really, really passionate about. I have been through a long period of depression and I suffer with anxiety. I'm diagnosed with anxiety. So, this is something that I have really wanted to talk about through my writing with readers everywhere. And that's what I'm working on right now. For the next book, it's going to be a nonfiction. It's going to be a journey through what I went through during my depression, how it happened, how I pulled myself through, and how therapy has really helped me to understand, my trauma responses, understand and bring under control everything that was haywire in my mind and in my being. That's something that I'm really, really looking forward to talking about. And of course, it's not easy. I'm sure everybody out there who has been through any kind of trauma will relate to this, that it's very difficult to write about your trauma. It's very difficult to relive that trauma. It's one thing to do it in therapy, but when you're writing about it, you're all alone. And, it's a lonely journey when you're writing about it. And it takes me a lot of time to bring all of that trauma to the front so that I can tell other people that, you are not alone.
Hmm.
Because that's what I got when I was a kid. That's what I got from the books that I read, that I was not alone. And books have saved my life, literally saved my life in so many ways at so many junctures in my life. That's what I want to give back to the world, and to reach out to somebody out there who may be suffering through any kind of trauma or any kind of depression or anxiety, that you are not alone. This has happened and you can work through.
Wow. So you need to keep me in mind because I want you to come back when that book is ready to talk about, because I want to help you promote that book as well. I think that's very needed right now, Monica, and I'm so thrilled to hear that that's your journey because you're going to help even more people by writing that book. So I'm a big fan. Like, I'm a big fan of what you're doing because you're so focused on other people and sharing stories that help others. So, congratulations on your book. Congratulations on the new book you're working on. And again, I'm following you with great interest. So, you have a fan here in Canada. So, congratulations.
Really, really, really happy to know that, David. And I'm sure, next book I'm reaching out to you again, because I this is something that's a message that I want to go out into the world, and it's really close to my heart. And yes, we will talk about my next book
I
very,
love it.
very soon.
See, the power of the internet. We can connect in real time from across the world and be a support to each other. I just love podcasting and I love the fact that you and I can do this together. You're a great guest, Monica. Do more of this. You're an amazing guest. More people need to hear your voice and hear the story of your journey as an author. So as authors who have podcasts listening to us today, definitely reach out to Monica and have her on your show. You're going to love talking to Monica. Monica, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me here. It was a pleasure.
Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun, well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to how to do this. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.